Hey everybody, welcome back. Brandon in the basement again. Want to give you guys an update on my training for this meet prep. As of the time of this video, I am 87 days out, and it seems like just the other day I did an update, and that's because just the other day I did an update. I did that update on Saturday, and here I am on Thursday, and I've already trained my entire week a little bit early. So what I did is I trained Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 4 days in a row, and ended my training week fairly early. I'm not going to be able to train today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So basically, I have to take a week off of training, and I'll get to that in just a second. So I condensed this week, and I'll have to condense the next week too when I'm able to train. And I will do that from time to time. If there's something that prevents me from training, I'll look to condense and make sure I get in my main sessions. And I'll hopefully try to talk about that a little bit on this particular video. I really want to make sure I get the meat and potatoes in, which are squatting, benching, and deadlifting, and the sides, like the accessory work. If I don't do it, it's a detriment, but not tremendously so where it's going to be a huge detriment, and will make up for lost time later. I mean, if I miss a couple of sets of bicep curls, it's not going to really impact how I do in my actual powerlifting meet. So let's just get right into it. I'll run over it. So on this one, which is week 2, day 1, let's review. This is typically done on a Monday. I did it on a Sunday. Comp squat, top set at 445. I hit that for 5 reps at what I rated an RPE 6. It felt really good. Really worked on bracing and getting my elbows down, and squats are just feeling really good. And everything this week felt really good, which is surprising because I thought going into 4 days straight on one less day of rest without any rest in between those 4 training days, that training would be severely impacted. I think I had one of my best weeks ever. Now, one of the adjustments I did make, however, though, is based off of that top set. It suggested my first back off set at 425. Knowing that I had this week ahead of me, I decided to just drop it to 405, and I kept it there even though it suggested I do heavier weights and my RPEs were still relatively low. I wanted to stay a little bit fresh, and I was really concerned with that top set instead. From there, moving on to feet up bench, felt really good. First working set was at 225, and based off the RPEs I put in, by my 5th and final set, I was up to 250, and things are still moving and feeling really, really good overall. And again, I think the app is a little bit back on this for me, only because it assumes most people's feet up bench isn't as strong as their normal bench. For me, that doesn't really seem to be the case. So it will adapt over time, although that first working set was fairly low, and is the reason I jumped up a good 35 pounds more than it suggested, and moved on to finally some 1-inch conventional deadlift pull. So only 2 sets here. And for these lifts, I'm doing this particular one in kilograms, but as you've noticed from the last video and some of my other videos, I tend to flip-flop between if I'm using pound plates or kilo plates. The app makes it super easy. All you would have to do is within a given exercise at any time, you can switch and flip during a session or from week to week or whatever you want to do. You just hit the info button and it asks you your preferences. I tend not to tell people to mess with the preferred rep style. Maybe I'll get into that in a different video. But you just change the units from kg to pounds and you hit back, and it's now updated accordingly, both the weight that you should be doing and what you actually input. So if you paid attention before, I had 220 for my first set in kilograms, 225 on my second set, and now it actually goes and converts it to what it should be now that I've changed it to pounds. So that's why that 490 looks like a little weird, because if I was using pound plates, I'd probably do 495 instead. So really super simple, and I'll switch back just for the sake of, you can see the 220 and then the 225. RPEs were really low. Deadlifts have been feeling good, right? So from there, let's go back to the next day. So let's check out day 2. And day 2 is what I consider my easy day. And that's because I'm not squatting and I'm not deadlifting. Every other day in this training week, I am doing that. So Tuesday is my easy day. I can usually get it done in like a half an hour to 45 minutes, especially if I superset stuff in. For me, again, scaling back this week and not wanting to overdo it, so I'm not going to kill myself on accessories because I wanted to get through those 4 days in a row. I just stuck to the main work. So extra wide bench press, 6 sets of 5, kept it to 235 the entire working set. So I didn't update it or change it, and the app didn't suggest that I do it either based off of the RPEs that I put in. From there, I did do 2 sets of pendlay rows. So even though that's not a main powerlifting movement, I still want to make sure I get my back work in, especially with the volume of the pressing. So just 2 sets of pendlay rows, with the top set being 80 kg for 15 reps. Now let's move on to day 3. And day 3 was a little interesting because this was actually when I got that Kabuki deadlift bar, which I made a video on. Hopefully you guys watched. And I know I talked about in my last video just wanting to do mostly power bars, because if you train on a deadlift bar all the time and then compete in a federation that uses stiff bars, I usually find people regress in terms of what they can actually lift. You can get more out of a deadlift bar, and going from a deadlift bar to a stiff bar can be very off-putting because it feels so much more heavy because you can't get in that more optimal position. However, training with a stiff bar and then going to a competition that uses a deadlift bar, I usually found you can PR your total or lift more than you thought you could, because you do get that extra-ness out of that deadlift bar. And even though, again, I'll be competing in a federation that uses a stiff bar for this meet coming up, I really wasn't going to let the Kabuki deadlift bar sit there for a couple weeks. So I'm still going to work it in here or there. But my primary focus going forward after this week is to make sure I do some main competition-style deadlifts with the stiff bar. And I really tried to talk myself in these particular sets for deadlifts not to overdo it. I got really excited, especially my first working set. I bumped it up, 15 pounds here, so 495. I did that for 4, rated it at a very low RPE 5. My back off set said do 480, but I was like, I'm just going to leave it 495 because that was easy, and it felt easy again. Next set, 505. Easy again. In fact, even easier than the 495s felt. And then finally finished with 515 for a set of 4 at an RPE 6. So I had to really fight myself not to push anything heavier than that, even though I know it was for sure there. But really like that bar, as I said in the video, and it was just a fun day overall. From there, moved on to comp bench. I stuck at the lower end of the spectrum for this just because my main comp bench day is usually on Fridays or my day 4s. I'm benching all 4 training weeks, and I knew I was going to have to do a heavy top set the next day, so I didn't want to push myself, wanted to stay a little fresh. So I just did 205 for sets of 4 before finishing with some pause squats where I kind of tanked it because, again, I pushed my deadlifts more than I should, more than the app had suggested. So to even out for that, I kind of took it easy on pause squats for this particular week. And that brings us to the final day, which is day 4, comp bench, top set. Suggested 235 to 245. I felt like that was a little bit under considering it wanted me to get 5 reps. So I bumped it up to 255, got the 5 reps, and rated it at an RPE 8. And in fact, over the course of the back off sets, I was able to finish my last back off, which was 6 sets of back off, so 7 sets total. 250 for 5 at an RPE 7. So bench felt really good all week, even with the condensed workout times and the higher volume. From there, moved on to some more comp deadlift. So I had comp deadlift basically 2 days in a row. These are supposed to be technique sets or lower, but again, everything felt good, and the Kabuki deadlift bar was calling my name. So did, actually, let me change this because it's supposed to be in kilograms. So again, showing you how easy it is to do. Did my first working set at 170, so right around the range that it would suggest. Since I only had 2 sets and I was feeling really good, I decided to bump it up to 200 kg for the last set, and I actually ended up doing 4 reps at an RPE 5.5. So my back and my body was not fried at all from the work, and I was able to get all of that in. And that's what I decided to call my working week. So just squat, bench, deadlift. That's all I did in 4 days, Sunday through Wednesday, and now I have to take a week off of lifting. And let me talk about why just really briefly. And that's because your boy had some surgery. Very minor and very elective surgery, but my wife and I decided that we no longer want to have any children, so we took some precautions or some steps in order to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I had a vasectomy, which didn't hurt, was seamless, took about a half an hour, but still they recommend taking at least a week off from any strenuous activity, which my weight training tends to be. So I am going to take a week off. So it's going to be from Wednesday when I had the surgery to next Wednesday, which means I'm going to try to condense my next week of training basically into probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I'll probably skip that day 2, which is just like, some bench work and some pendlay rows. So I'll try to hit days 1, 3, and 4 on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, take Sunday off, and then get back on schedule. We'll see how it goes. But that's usually how I adapt things, right? I take a look at my week and when I have to miss days, and I prioritize the most important days to me and the most important movements. And I found that allows me to still stay relatively fresh without getting overly too detrained. It is going to be hard not to train for the next week, but it's for the best because I don't want these stitches that are on my balls to be bursting. So Hopefully that gives you some good insight. In fact, it might give you too much insight into what's going on. But if you have any questions about the training, the program, getting a vasectomy, if it's something that you and your significant other are interested in, I can answer your questions now. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.